to the Fulfilment Game. Here we have meaningful conversations with accomplished professionals exploring life and career beyond just material accomplishments. I'm your host, Amit Sood. Today we have Hans Lagerweij.
Very good. Yeah.
Hans has been a corporate leader, a CEO, a CCO, a CRO with world-leading corporations in the FMCG and hospitality industry. Today,
Yes.
Hans is a growth architect, an innovation champion, a strategic framework developer, and an expert in igniting growth and scaling operations of large global businesses, helping them expand and achieve consistent growth. Hans is also the author of best-selling book, The Why Whisperer. Hans, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Amit. And well done on pronunciation of my difficult Dutch name.
Thanks for helping me out with that. I checked out how the name is pronounced even before we connected the first time.
Yeah.
But even the internet doesn't appear to help quite accurately with how this needs to go. Yep.
It's a very special Dutch name.
Yeah. Great. Thanks for making time, Hans. We really appreciate this. Your book, The Why Whisperer. How about starting with that? Where did that inspiration come from? Why the why?
Yeah, good question. The inspiration came probably with my career. So I worked, as you said, in fast-moving consumer goods and in hospitality, worked for several companies. The interesting fact is also I lived and worked in 8 different countries in my life, quite an international background. And a couple of things that I observed is that companies really have a difficult time connecting their strategy, their direction, their plans with their teams, with the teams that need to get the job done. And if we talk about things like fulfillment, meaning in life, meaning in work, it is so critical to understand what the purpose of the company is and where the company is going. And what I've also seen is living and working in 8 different countries with very different cultures. Everyone, doesn't matter what cultural background, everyone wants to have meaning in their job, meaning in what they do for daily work. Meaning is a universal need. So yeah, that's why I wrote this book about how to motivate and align your teams to get your strategy done.
So the search for meaning or the inspiration to help people find meaning, what did it take for Hans to discover it for himself?
Yeah, a lot of time and a lot of flexibility, and also open to learn, open to develop, open to question yourself. Are you in the right path? So I had a very interesting career, first 9 years in fast-moving consumer goods. And as a professional, these were very important times for me. I learned a lot about brand management, brand development, about marketing, sales. But in the end, I was really asking myself the question, like, is there something more in life than managing diapers, shoe polish, deodorant, toilet paper brands, etc.? And I found in the end more meaning in the hospitality industry. Why? The products that we create in the hospitality industry is something where a customer is looking forward to most of the year. So this is for a lot of customers that one of the highlights of the year. And now it gets even better. If you deliver and if you create unforgettable experiences, then this product that you deliver becomes something that they will never forget in their lives. And I thought this is a product that really, fulfills more than any other products in the world, my personal alignment, so to speak.
And what comes in the way, Hans, when you help people and the corporations align their teams to the fundamental why, the purpose of the organization? What comes in our way of this alignment? What comes in a way of discovery and then perhaps follow the purpose?
Well, a lot, actually. Simon Sinek wrote this wonderful book about purpose and the why. Very important, absolutely super inspiration. Companies have a hard time translating that into the work floor. And I did some research on this, not just based on my personal experience, but just looking at what some business and management research magazines but also international consultants and study companies, what they have found about this subject. And I found actually some really alarming facts, like that 95% of the employees worldwide have no clue what the strategy of their company is. 95%. It's incredible. So what I noticed, maybe a little bit more about my personal experience. Yeah. So one of my proud achievements was managing an expedition cruise company that takes passengers to Antarctica and the Arctic. Wonderful destinations. And of course, one of the dangers of those destinations is hypothermia. And from that learning, I created a concept which I called strategic hypothermia. And what I mean by that is that if you talk about strategies, about direction, about purpose, in the boardroom, it can be a hot topic, but somehow it freezes down until it really reaches the teams that execute. So something is broken in that process between creation and execution. And yeah, that's the main focus then in the end of my book. It's not about how to create a winning strategy or how to create a purpose. No, it is about how to implement, how to really make it happen, make it come alive.
So when we talk about the freeze as the strategy flows or as the why flows from the top of an organization towards the real implementers right at the bottom, what is it that causes the freeze? Is it because they lose the emotional charge from the message or the description of the purpose? Or is it that it isn't understood that what is it that we are out to accomplish together?
It's a lot of things. And you mentioned the most important ones. It is about communication. It's about understanding. It is about trying to explain it in very simple terms. In my book, I argue for a concept which I call the reverse elevator speech or elevator pitch. And what I mean with that, so when I was a young, ambitious trainee coming into the world, I learned about this concept about the elevator pitch. If you stand in the elevator with the CEO, that's the opportunity to pitch your idea, but it must be short and to the point and in 2 minutes max. So, and in my book, I argue actually about the other way around. So now you're a CEO and you have to pitch your view, your vision, your strategy in less than 2 minutes in simple words to your employee who's standing next to you in the elevator. So it is about communication, but it's also sometimes about attitude. Attitude that strategy belongs in the boardroom and is something for senior management, and it should not be something for the lower levels. And I also come across concepts like, we need to get buy-in on our strategy from our teams. And I argue it's not about buy-in. Buy-in sounds like that you're trying to sell me. You sell me a car and maybe I buy into that. No, it should be a shared purpose. It should be a shared strategy. It should be something that is collective.
So a shared strategy would be often actually co-created, isn't it? That would mean that it has to be bottoms up as a development process too.
Yes, very interesting point. And of course, I speak openly about that book. That could also create big challenges because if you have a corporation of, let's say, 50,000 employees, how do you create a bottom-up strategy? That's almost impossible. But at least what you could do is invite your team in aspects of the strategy. And I give you an example. If things are not going that well and you need to cost save, what you traditionally see is that executive teams lock themselves up in a boardroom, brainstorm about cost-saving ideas, come out of the boardroom and start executing it. So why not explain the issue to your team? Explain that there's a very big need for cost savings and invite everyone to submit ideas in whatever technical way possible. So I've done this in my career 2 times, and it is surprisingly how constructive and excellent ideas come out of a session like this, that everyone is involved, versus an option where you just brainstorm with your key executives. And another point that I make in my book is that, of course, now with the rise of and development of AI, actually there is technical opportunities to, as a CEO, to listen to 50,000 employees. And there's even, I came across systems that could help you with this. Funny enough, in my home country, two entrepreneurs created a system called Parrot, which is exactly what I just mentioned. It's a system that gives you, as a corporation, an opportunity to involve and get immediate feedback from whatever size of teams you have. So there's now technical opportunities to help you with this.
So that's an interesting challenge too. And Hans, since you work on global corporations and you help companies accomplish global footprints, expansions, what are the challenges that you're looking at presently under the geoeconomics? Isn't this becoming a very different landscape from the point of view of the concerns becoming more local and the preoccupation of self-expression taking precedence over a very broad or global messaging for corporations? Is that something that finds relevance too in marketing?
Yeah, you say in marketing, but in the end, as I stressed, purpose and the need for purpose is really something universal. I'm now convinced, after working and living in so many countries, but also meeting so many different cultures, everyone needs meaning in their work. And of course, companies and cultures are completely different in how to deliver that or how to approach that. And yeah, possibly what I've seen is that I don't want to assign this to certain cultures or countries, but a lot of companies can still learn on how to involve, how to adjust their style, how to express their views and the purpose to their global teams.
And when one looks at it from the individual standpoint, what's the challenge there? What is the human challenge when one is trying to discover or making a sense of one's life itself?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah,
the challenge there?
yeah, very good point. Because in the end, of course, the optimal mix is that everyone should discover their own personal purpose, their own personal why, and that should be aligned with companies. That should be aligned with organizations. That creates a happy workforce and a team that's really, moving forward. But what I first see is that a lot of people, they are not asking themselves these difficult questions. They cannot really define what's their own personal purpose in life is, what's their why. And then the second thing that I see is that once once that is defined, and there is not a direct alignment with the company you work for, and I had that experience, as we just said, then you need to make a tough decision and say, okay, I need to find a better way to find my purpose. I need to find a new company where I can find my purpose, where I can align my purpose. So the two biggest mistakes that I see is that people are not aware of their own purpose. And secondly, once they are aware, is that they don't dare to take the next step if there is a misalignment.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the challenge, isn't it? And Hans, if you were to help people, say, the question of why appears often a little too simplistic for one to confront directly.
Yeah.
So if I'm trying to discover my purpose or define it for myself, what is the best approach that would help me actually slow myself down into the question, not just it appears too straight to ask, oh, okay, so what's your why? Why are you doing
Yeah.
what is the best?
For me, there's two things to dive into. So the first thing is, when have you been most successful? So think about situations, projects, times, companies, whatever that you personally think that you were most successful in delivering. So what was the situation? Why were you so successful in that situation? So success. And on the second level, it's about fun. It's about enjoyment. It's about being happy. So when Good question. When were you most happy in your life, in your work? What was the moment? What was the situation? What was the environment? And I think purpose is really something that you can find in between what makes you happy, what makes you have fun, what makes you go out of bed every day and think, yes, it's another day, let's go for it. And at the other hand, what's the situation, what's the environment that you're most successful?
Yeah, and then the other challenge when does one finds that okay, I find that this is where I would be happier, but I don't see organizations which appear to align as well to my whether it is my value system or my comfort or my alignment with the kind of life that I wish it were, which would also be the present generation for the young people coming in because the heart craves a freer lifestyle. One,
Yeah.
yeah. And the corporation, the old military style top down organizations, I think, are not the best places to discover self expression. And so, what does one do then?
That's a really good question. And I don't know if that's also with you, Amit, but when I went to university, when I studied business, this whole principle of working for big corporations was the ideal. That everyone wanted to work for this big company, that big company. That's all what our ambitions are. It's very interesting now what I see with my daughter, who is almost 18, and if I see what she and her friends think about, they think about starting their own company. They don't have the ambition of working for a big multinational. They want to innovate. They want to take ownership. They want to be an entrepreneur. So my daughter already has now 2 years her own little company. And I think it's amazing. I think it's actually very inspiring what I see with the younger generation, what their attitudes to work and life are. And I actually think it's a warning sign for companies that if you don't create these environments, these team and entrepreneurial environments where everyone can share in and everyone shares the same meaning, then you might have some challenges in the future for attracting the right talent.
Yeah. Frederick Laloux has written a very interesting book on the topic. This Frenchman has written a book called Reinventing Organizations, and he speaks about as the human consciousness becomes ready to take in more complex ideas and we paradoxes and contradictions, and we make room in our own system, in our human experience to allow for various kinds of variations. The organizations too must make room to connect with human beings in a new way. Human beings must also organize differently, come together differently. And he speaks about how the future organizations might work for. In my life too, you spoke about me. I do remember that I think the initial ambition is to find, as Janet O'Hackberg in her book Real Power speaks about, that the first ambition is to seek validation from the brand that I get associated with. And later on, at some point of time, it wants to move in a few steps towards the kind of wisdom that the heart wants to express. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that is beautifully said. As I told you, I've been involved with travel and remote travel. I took passengers to Antarctica, to the actual North Pole.
Wow.
But what I really have learned over the time is that the most important journey that we have is 18 inches from the head to the heart.
Mm.
And, building on that, we talked about what's going wrong with translating purpose from companies, the why. And the problem is that it's often seen as a corporate slogan. So purpose is not this beautiful poster in the corporate restaurant. It is the spiritual heartbeat of your team.
Oh, wow.
And to get there, and that's a reason why I wrote this book.
That's a very powerful expression, the spiritual heartbeat of your team.
Yes.
There are several potent ideas inside this phrase. Number one, you speak about it being the heartbeat not of an individual, but as a team. So we must sense it as for the collective. So what is it that we are actually about? What is it we are out to serve, and in what order? And then you also connect it with the heart, and you connect it with spirituality. So why the word spirituality in this context?
Yeah. Good point. I think there might be a lot of perceptions about what the word spiritual means, but for me, spiritual is purpose, it's direction, it is a feeling of belonging and a feeling that we, not you, we are on the right path forward.
Wow.
And
Go on, please.
yeah, and that we are inspired on that path, inspired by whatever, by the purpose, by yourself, by your team.
Yeah, to me too, the idea of spirituality, I heard it from somebody speak about it. A gentleman I was training with, Leon Vanderpool, he spoke about spirituality as something that gives him a sense of aliveness, as if being more alive, more thrilled with life, more.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's a little bit the same with strategy. So my book is a lot about strategy because strategy is where you would like to go in the future. And I also talk about how does the why, purpose, vision, mission, how does it all fit in? And one of the comments that I make, a strategy without a clear why is like a body without a soul. Just completely supporting Simon Sinek's point, the why, the direction, the purpose of the company. It's a critical element to create that soul, to create that spiritual heartbeat in your team.
Hans, you spoke about two elements of the why. You spoke about what were you doing when you were most successful? Ask the question when you're out to discover why, ask yourself, when were you most successful in your past few years? What were you doing at that time that you were actually successful? And the other thing that you spoke about is when is it that you were having most fun and you were feeling happy?
Yes.
I'm wondering, does contribution also belong here? Does making a difference, okay, making somebody else, about somebody else, also form an essential part of the why? Or
Yes, and I would group that under success. So success is not only, in my view, defined as money or revenue or profit. Success can also be the finding human development, develop a team. Success is not found just in financial formulas and in spreadsheets. It's found in the human beings, in my view, who have to make those formulas, those spreadsheets work.
indeed, indeed, I feel that the careers essentially will have to be about a more truer self-expression of one's heart and finding abundance through it. So finding abundance through, say, contribution or actually expression of purpose. So how do you see the careers tomorrow when we look at the people who are actually passing out of institutions? And I'm also curious, Hans, when you look back at when you were finishing your education at Rotterdam, the premium institution, and the journey that you've made since,
Yeah.
how do the two compare? How do you look at that? And how, from that, what message comes out for the young people who are actually finishing education now? What do you feel about that?
Oh, that's a good, deep question. The strength is, so what I currently see is that at a younger age, people are asking themselves already tougher questions like, what do I really want to be? What am I really good at? I thought, so if I want to criticize my own start of the career, I was very proud to do my MBA and to have the best grades here and that and work for a big company. And then I started working. I thought that I knew everything. The thing is, your life, your career is just one constant learning opportunity. It's one constant development opportunity. It never stops, and it should never stop. And it means always ask yourself the right questions. Always ask yourself, what's next? What would be my own personal next steps? Be critical of yourself. What did I do wrong? What did I learn from that? How I can improve in the future? How I can prevent issues in the future? So come in this constant learning and development flow, and you are responsible for that. Not a company, not an HR team, not a training and development team. You are responsible for developing yourself as a professional, as a human being, etc.
As a life itself,
Yes.
as giving direction to your life and to to draw meaning or to give a sense of meaning.
Exactly. And don't think like I was at when I was 23 that you all know it.
I think it unfolds in its own time
Yeah,
as
exactly.
life has a way of teaching us. Yeah. What did we miss? Is there anything that else that is coming to Hans to share as his wisdom, a reflection on life or career itself, or on setting up corporations or small businesses turning bigger? What matters?
Yeah, I think we talked about the most important topics. So in my book, I talk about the 6 C's, and I don't want to give a lecture about each C now here at the end of our talk, but I want to highlight one C, and because it's the most non-corporate C, it is also maybe one of the most forgotten C's, and it's the C of celebrating successes.
Wow.
And like I explained in my book, at some point I was looking for C's. For me, actually, it's a little bit bigger than celebrating successes. It is about creating fun on the work floor. And celebrating successes, it is so important. And with celebrating successes, I don't mean that after a year working and we made our targets, let's celebrate. Yes, that's also celebrating successes. That should also happen. But you should, especially as a leader, celebrate the little steps in between. Strategy is not a marathon. It's little sprints, little smaller runs. And in the end, you run that marathon. But it starts with the smaller, the shorter distances. And if you talk about celebration, a celebration doesn't mean throwing in big money and a big show and a big party. Yes, once in a while, maybe that's also good fun. But celebrations can be so simple, like a cake, like a toast, or even a high five.
Yeah.
But celebrate the little steps towards success.
How powerful is that? On one end, what you've emphasized is actually the soul. And on the other, you're speaking about the heart and the energy that generates and how to maintain that happy energy there. Isn't it so?
Exactly.
Yeah. Hans, how does the Dutch culture show up in the context of the philosophy that you maintain? How does that connect with this? I'm just curious. How do you feel about that?
I'm not talking specifically about the Dutch culture in my book, but one of the aspects of being Dutch is that we are super direct. We don't like to talk around things. Yeah, maybe that is also reflected in my book, where I address issues like they are. I have very short, direct checklists after every chapter. So this is not a big, complex theory book that takes you a lot of thinking and time to read and understand. It's 100 pages of my philosophy, but every time summarized in checklists. So you can take the book and immediately start working on it tomorrow at work. It's very practical, very pragmatic. We Dutch are also very pragmatic. Maybe it's reflected a little bit of Dutch culture that way in the book.
Wow, that's powerful. That was Hans Lagerweij. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, Hans, for sharing from the book. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a book called The Why Whisperer. You'll find it on Amazon. It's a brilliant work on how to discover why for your organization and implement it so that it goes all the way to the roots of the organization, spreading it across the team so that it accomplishes authentic and continuous growth. There's something really powerful in hearing these journeys, not just about what Hans has accomplished, but the impact that he has made on how organizations essentially should be formed and how they should be run. Thank you so much, Hans.
Thank you, Amit.
It was a pleasure having you here. And for everyone else listening, this is an invitation to pause and consider what is it that gives you a sense of why? What is it that gives your work a sense of why? See if you'd like to ponder over what has been when is it that you found success in the most recent time? When is it that you were most happy? And what gave you the sense of contribution to the people around you or to the difference that you were making to the work that you're doing? So until next time, thank you so much. Take care and stay connected. And switch to the fulfillment game. Don't forget to like and follow for more such conversations. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And